everybody. Welcome to episode 16 of WorldView Finder. I got it right. I got the episode and the name of our podcast right.
It's going to be a good episode.
Doing good. I'm back. I know we did
Welcome back.
episode last week. Nobody knows, but
nobody knows
I was off 2
gone.
weeks. And it was great. Did I tell you about playing Zelda with my son every day? Did I talk about that on here? Because
You did a little bit.
That became our routine. We get up in the morning, play Zelda. Sometimes for like an hour, sometimes till after lunch.
Oh my goodness.
That's a good routine.
It was great. It's been a lot of fun. I am sometimes though. He's just like, "Go here, do this," and then he gets mad if I don't. I'm like, "Well, I want to explore as well, Shepherd."
He's running the show.
Yeah, but I have a new kid in the house. Yeah.
Shout out to
Bishop.
Oh, we have a new routine now at night where Amos and I play Angry Birds. Like he plays it.
The old school.
Yeah, and he's pretty good, but there are some times where he just like you can tell when he's getting done like with his time, and so he just like shoots off birds in the randomest places, and I just get so angry. I'm like, "Give me that phone! I want to show you what to do."
Angry at Angry Birds. Oh man, what WorldView does Angry Birds?
I don't know because he watched the movie recently too.
The movie it probably has a WorldView.
It probably does.
Yeah. I didn't watch it with him though, so I can't say.
Mindless fun. That. Jimmy, anything? Any updates on life?
No, I don't have a new child like Chris, so life goes on as usual.
All right. Well, hey, this week we're going to be talking about Hoarders, your favorite show ever.
Oh my goodness.
Antman and the Wasp, Quantumania.
Wow.
Okay.
That.
Wow.
And then something weird that happened in Florida, of course. So, Jimmy, you've been watching Hoarders.
We picked it back up last night because we were watching just different things, and we just wanted to kind of turn our minds off and turn Hoarders on.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever watched Hoarders?
Yeah, I think I've seen an episode.
I don't think I ever have. I know the premise.
Really? Okay.
I can't, but it's one of those that I just can't do.
So it's an hour and a half each episode.
Oh my
so
goodness,
it's like a
okay.
movie where you're following this person. And now I will say, if you're watching at home, I made this mistake last night. Don't start watching it while you're eating dinner. Because some of the episodes are grosser than others. Luckily, this one wasn't terribly gross, but I was eating mozzarella sticks and I almost couldn't get them down. So don't eat while you're watching.
Because I know they hoard stuff, but it's more
like the condition that they live
Oh
in.
yeah, or like there are people that like have cats, or they like leave food out, and this goes on for literally like 10 years. So it's just 10 years of stuff all in your house. Like this particular episode. This particular episode, after they removed all the trash and stuff, they removed 44,000 pounds of trash from this lady's house, which is a lot.
44,000.
I can't believe it even fits in this house.
It barely did. Like every room was like halfway up the wall.
So did they have like walkways?
Yeah, so you had like a little path, and then you had to like climb over this mattress to go up the stairs, and then it was a whole thing.
Oh my goodness.
So at what point do they, how do they get that far? That's what I want to know. Because at what point do they say, I probably have a problem? Or how do the Hoarders people find these people?
Yeah, so, well, I think they write in, or a family member will write in on behalf of them.
Family member, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it was interesting because how most of these start is they have a hoarding therapist that always goes in and talks to the hoarder. So it's like a whole thing. Because
you'd have to have some therapy because there's clearly a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and so I think it's interesting watching a couple different episodes. Why? Because you're asking, how does this happen? Why does this happen? And for some people, like in this last specific episode, because what the therapist was trying to do is they talk to them and try to get down to the root of the problem of why this happened. So it's not just you clean the house and then 5 years down the line and start it again.
Back, yeah.
So for this particular person, it was kind of a roller coaster. So she had a baby with this guy, and then like a year later, found out this guy had been married for a long time and didn't let her know. So, because the therapist was like, why do you think that you hoard things? Like, where did it start? And she's like,
was she hoarding just anything?
Yeah. So this. A lot of the things, it was stuff that she would buy, and then a lot of it was like stuff that she would buy and never even open, like Amazon packages and stuff, or Home Shopping Network. There was a lot of stuff from there.
Oh, QVC.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So stuff that wasn't even open. So he's like, where did this start? And she said that people would let me down, and I felt like if I bought things, it would make me feel better. And then that continued to go on. And she said at a certain point, it just got out of hand. And then different things, like she had like some kidney failure and then kidney transplant, and then both her parents died and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of compounded, and then over years and years. And then you get to this point where you walk in and you see the house and it's just like crazy.
So is this ever like Storage Wars where they'll find some unopened packages and be like, this is worth millions of dollars?
No.
Okay.
Not that I've
They
seen.
should combine the two.
Yeah. It's like, here's a
Storage hoarders.
it's a container of salsa that's been there since 2008.
Oh,
It's like, that's probably not worth a whole lot. So there's some interesting stuff there. But what was interesting to me was the why behind it, because and all these things, it's not, some people just have an attachment to stuff and they can't throw stuff out. But for a lot of people, it's like there was either some traumatic event or just some emotional problem in their own life that caused that. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it's not necessarily that you hoard something, but you have different coping mechanisms that you do something destructive, and that's how you cope with things.
But shopping doesn't seem destructive, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, at first. So it's like she feels bad. And so like,
Retail therapy.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever heard that? Retail therapy?
I've never heard of retail therapy.
What?
Yeah, you go shop to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, that's like a whole thing.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like, because you said there's a hoarder therapist.
Oh, yeah,
I thought you
yeah.
were saying there's like a therapist out there
No,
that's
no,
like,
no.
you come in and they're like, I'm going to help you buy things to make you feel better. That's why. Okay.
No.
All right. Yeah.
It's,
So
you do it to yourself. You are your
okay,
own
yes.
therapist.
That, okay. Hey, I'm a retail therapist. I'll teach you how to buy things so you can be on Hoarders. So in this process, do they, like, have they ever been back to somebody's house that like relapsed or whatever?
So what's interesting is how each of these end. So you see kind of where they started.
they burn their house.
So sometimes you're like, why don't you just burn the house down? Like, this is far beyond repair. But so how each of these goes, normally you start it and there's some struggles, and by the end of the fourth day or whatever, they clean the house, and then at the very end, after like the family's reunited and everything, they have some text that comes up on the screen that gives you an update, and like 80% of them are like, and then in the next week, they relapsed and started hoarding stuff again, and then the families never talked to them again, or they died or something like this.
Oh my goodness.
Wait, the person died?
Yeah, there have been some like that. So
Jeez.
most of them are like because you see, oh, maybe this is going to be the start of something new, and then you see the update and you're just waiting for
So
it.
most likely not.
Everything went wrong. But this one that we watched last night was actually a happy ending. It's like the
good.
family's reunited, the lady's bringing friends over, she's not hoarding again, and that kind of thing.
So why do they do that show then if most of them end in tragedy?
To make money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. No,
Yeah, because I wonder if
that's
there's
not
like
good
a
logic, though.
long-term plan. Because you can't just do therapy for a week.
Oh, yeah. So they have aftercare therapy. And a lot of the hoarders will refuse that. They're like, I don't need it. And then they go off the rails again, and their family cuts ties with them forever, and then they die.
Wow, over hoarding. So it's really another form of addiction.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay.
So the worldview basically is stuff makes me happy.
Yeah.
Like I mean that becomes an addiction
Yeah.
of
Or
like,
secure.
yeah.
Like brings me security.
So how do we get past that? Like that's what like because there's like in all our lives I think there is something like that, right?
Yeah,
that
we have
like
those tendencies.
oh yeah, and it's not just buying things, but it's other stuff that we
Yeah.
rely on, and that's why I mean like so we follow Jesus, and so I mean he tells us like put him first,
Yeah.
seek him first, and then all the other things that are important. Because that I mean when he tells the crowd, he's like, hey, do the birds like go to the grocery store and buy stuff? He's like, no, like God provides for them. Like they don't like
They got that
Jesus'
welfare
word.
mindset.
Yeah, those birds.
You got that
Always looking for handouts.
Watch our last episode.
Mockingjay. Yeah, a couple episodes ago. But
Yeah.
but then but also like
Well, store of your treasures in heaven, not
Yeah.
here on earth. That's like a
Not
big
in your
one.
house.
where moth
Yeah.
and rust and mold destroy you and your lungs. So.
Nice.
But you said what was the quote you had from her or something along those lines of?
Oh, yeah. So people let me down, and then I thought by buying things I would feel better.
Yeah, and so I mean,
Oh.
really, like it's this search for happiness, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of like the worldview stuff that we look at, and even like shows and like music, all that stuff, like kind of pushes this idea like that these things will make you happy, and
Yeah.
like, and that's our end goal. A lot of times is to find true happiness. And it's like, oh, but it's not in stuff. And like, then it gets out of control. And you're like, oh, and I'm sure at one point people said, hey, you should stop this.
Yeah. Well, and it's like this lady was all by herself, and it gets to the point where you see kind of the thing around you, and you can't get out of it yourself. This is going to be going on. Because that's the thing that she kept saying.
Stuck,
It got out of hand. So it got out of hand, and she couldn't handle it anymore. So she was kind of secluded trying to do this herself. But once she had people that came in, were able to help her through that, then she was able to get out of it.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have too much stuff to deal with. You
Too
have to
much
have
stuff.
outside help.
So that might be a good worldview, like that you need a community of people that are going to help you through those things. And so there should have been people in her life before she got to that point, but because she was betrayed by her
baby daddy
boyfriend, and all that stuff, like those things kind of like, oh, I can't trust this person. And so it seeded distrust in her, and then parents died and all this stuff. And so it's like, well, now
she's dead.
I have nobody. Yeah. And so like, that's why like doing life together in, that's what we talked about with our elementary kids yesterday in church. It's like, it was this idea of like, hey, we need community. And that's why like following Jesus is supposed to be done with other people. And so because there are times where I'm going to get off base and Jimmy's going to come in and be like, hey, you're off base, fix this. Or like, oh man, I've got this huge problem. And then the community surrounds you and helps you through that. And so that's cool. I've never watched that show, and I don't plan to.
That's okay. You can live vicariously through me.
Yes, you can tell me all about it. So, what would you guys hoard if you were going to be like on an episode of Hoarders, and they came to your house and like came in like, what? Why do you have so many of this? Did she have one specific thing, or just a bunch of?
She just liked buying things. So anything from the QVC, Amazon, stuff like that, and most of it like she wouldn't even open. So
a lot of turbans.
A lot of turbans. For me, I think it would be books, because I think I see a bunch of books and then I don't read them, but I'm like, oh, I want that book.
But you buy digitally, don't you?
Yeah, so that's why I don't hoard them. I hoard them on Audible and Kindle.
So you'd have Kindles just all in here. This one has my favorite collection.
The good thing about Kindles is you can keep a whole lot of books on one. So this lady just needed a Kindle.
What about you? Would you hoard?
I feel like at the moment I'm hoarding like baby clothes or just like my kids' clothes, because you don't get rid of them because you always think like somebody else could use them, or what if I have another kid and I need them. And so, but like your kids end up with thousands more clothes than they even need. So there's like this pile on. So it feels like right now we're hoarding baby clothes. But I feel like mine is books and mugs. Like I would love to just get a mug everywhere I go.
Books and mugs. Mine would be just old receipts. If you've ever seen my wallet,
your wallet is full
I
of
have tons of receipts.
We've tried to intervene many times.
But I'm a little better now. But I just don't know what to do with them. That's the thing.
Throw them away.
Throw them away. No, there's no reason.
Yeah, because Angela will balance. My wife will balance the old checkbook. No, have our bank statement and stuff and like check things against that.
What about after she does that?
Well, but also like for work stuff, like because I can get tax write-offs and things like that for if it's like work related or anything like that. So I do need to keep receipts, but then I like have them and I'm like, I don't know what to do with these. So then there's just like a pile in my, like I have a little cubby between my refrigerator and
digital things.
Take a picture of each of them, then throw them away.
I want my receipt.
Put them on your Kindle.
You need a therapist.
You get a free hamburger sometimes on the back of the receipts.
So you have to keep it.
Yeah, I would have receipts and coupons. I found coupons in our house. And they're like, how did this... Like we moved a couple years ago. I was like, these expired before we moved.
Straight from our mom.
Oh my goodness.
Who has that big Ziploc bag.
The couponing.
The coupon bag.
You inherited it.
Like, oh, well, Culver's will take them even though they're expired. Like, well, I think they do. So, all right, let's talk about Ant-Man and Wasp, Quantumania. So, first of all, the new Star Wars movie is what it should have been. It should have been Star Wars Episode 10. It's like...
Oh, it's pretty.
Yeah. So
it was.
So the reason we're talking about this,
Star Wars.
It's on. Yeah, it's on Disney Plus now. And I'm behind in all the Marvel stuff.
I am too.
So I'm back. Well, now with this one, I'm back up, but I haven't watched or Guardians 3 yet,
Same.
which I've heard it's sad or animal torture or something weird.
Oh.
There's like people like.
I think the raccoon's backstory, whatever.
Yeah, I think people don't like that.
He gets punched.
But anyway, so Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. Yeah, it's like it's like a Star Wars movie because it takes place in the
really
quantum
is.
verse, and you're like, what? There's all these weird alien people down there and like flying ships. Like it feels like another. I mean, it is kind of another world because it's the tiny world. Like, so one, I don't think it should have been called Ant-Man and Wasp because Wasp really did nothing. Like I watched it like 2 weeks ago, and I can't remember anything that she did that was significant in the movie. Like
She's just around for moral support.
she's around. The daughter was like a big part of it.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah. So as I watch it, like it's one of those things that you like see it through his eyes, kind of like all this stuff. But it's like he's still distant from his daughter. Like he. Like did all this stuff in the first movie to be close to his daughter and to get out of jail and do all this stuff, and then like, oh, but now he like doesn't even know about her, and then like she has her own suit, and like she's been doing all this stuff in the quantum verse with her grandfather and all this stuff, and you're like, what? Like, why are you still this way, Scott? He's a hoarder.
He's a hoarder.
He needs therapy. But yeah, so it's kind of like him and her kind of bonding again or whatever. But then you have the mom, who didn't tell anybody what happened when she was in the quantum verse, and this leads to bad things. And so as I was looking at the worldview of it and thinking about it, like just hiding those secrets, and it's kind of
It's like Hoarders.
Like she has this secret shame that she doesn't want anybody to know about, because while she was down in the quantum verse, she helped this guy named Kang that she doesn't know is this terrible guy, but he can travel with this spaceship that crashed there through different multiverses and like basically destroy them. And so he's Kang the Destroyer, and so he can go through and do all this stuff. But then she didn't know this until she like gets the ship built and then like touches the ship, and then she has a vision of all the stuff he's going to destroy. But he thinks he's doing good. And then there's all these other Kangs in the other multiverse that had banished him there because they didn't want him. Like this is where like it gets so in the weeds of like there's this
really convoluted.
There's a multiverse, and then in all the other multiverses, they think that there's a sacred timeline, and so anything that in the other multiverses that affect the sacred timeline, then they basically destroy those multiverses, which is like planets, and galaxies. And they just blow it up, and you're like, so this guy is doing that to keep the sacred timeline, but the other Kangs in the other timelines are like trying to kill him and all this stuff, and you're like, I don't know.
Wow.
It gets so crazy. But the whole plot starts because the mom didn't say anything about her time there, and then the girl is like doing stuff to like map the quantum verse or something, and then the lady's like, what? You sending a signal down there? Don't do that. And then they get sucked down into the quantum verse. And so
I hate when that happens.
I mean, the plot, it was, and then there's, I don't know. I didn't enjoy it very much. It was
really?
It was fun.
Yeah,
it was
okay.
entertaining, and then you're done and you're like, why did they even make that? Like, it's just kind of like, and I'm sure that there's stuff that is important later, but one of the quotes from Scott Lang, from Ant-Man himself, he goes, "It's a pretty good world. I'm glad we saved it," because I think that's from his book. Like he's talking about, he like wrote a book about being a Avenger and all this stuff, and so, but I thought it was interesting. Like, it's a pretty good world. I'm glad we saved it. Like, and then he goes and saves the whole world, I guess, again, by stopping Kang from destroying everything. So, but I mean, do you agree with that statement that it's a pretty good world? I'm glad we saved it.
Yeah.
Sure,
it's a pretty good world.
It's a pretty good world.
It's okay. I don't know, because in all these like the Marvel universe, it's about like this bigger picture. They say that life is sacred, kind of, because they don't want Thanos to snap and destroy half of their life and all that stuff. And they don't want, like, they're trying to protect life, and they like life is valuable, right?
Yeah.
In these worlds, and so, but then he's like down there like killing people. So you're like, well, what? Like that's where I was like the superhero dilemma, right? Because some of them
gotta crack a couple eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah, because they don't like say they kill people, but then some of them do, and so how do they determine which life? And I think that's what some of the, I don't know, Civil War and all that stuff is dealt with, because they're like, well, we're doing all these things, but yet like people are still dying. And so
Yeah.
why do we get to decide what's good and what's bad? And they're like, well, they're trying to destroy the world, so that's probably bad. But I don't know.
That's a hard dilemma.
Yeah.
Like, who gets to? Yeah, who do you get to kill?
Who do you get to
Just
kill?
Put him in jail.
Yeah. But then you see that with
But-
Batman, and he puts Joker in jail, and he gets out all the time.
Yeah, nobody can stay in jail.
Yeah.
So what do you do with them?
But that's why, like, when you have a good, this is, I think, the problem with superhero stuff, because when you have a good bad guy, you don't want them to die.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
if, like, Batman and Joker in the first episode with him, he kills him. You're like, he could have been great. And,
Yeah.
we killed him. So let's just put him in jail, and he gets out every couple of months. And so, it's like, well, Arkham Asylum has the worst security. That place, not great. But I think, like, going back to, like, the whole reason for this movie is because this lady didn't tell. She had this secret that was. She was afraid to let people know because of what they would think about her, and she didn't even know that she was helping this bad guy when she did it. But when she came back, she's like, "Well, that's in the quantum verse. Nobody's going to ever find out about this, and so I don't need to tell anybody." And so she lived with this, like, guilt and fear that they would find out and stuff.
Yeah.
And so why do we do that? What are we afraid is going to happen if we tell some of those things that we're like, oh man, I've got this secret that's, like, not good about my life. Why don't we tell people?
Well, it's just like Hoarders. It really, because in that specific episode, she had a neighbor that was a part of this process, and the neighbor had known her for I think they've been neighbors for like 12 years, and right across the street, and then she goes in and sees her house for the first time, and it's just crazy. Never knew. And so she came back out, and she's like, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" And the lady said, "I didn't want to bother you." But I'm sure it was that. It's like you get to this point where it's like, well, now this is so bad that no one can know. And then so you just hide it, and then you're like, okay, no one can find out about this. And then it just gets worse and worse because it's hidden.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of just shame wrapped up in stuff because you don't want, and that's one of the tactics of Satan is just saying, like those lies that he tells us is you're isolated, no one wants to help you, you're going to be a burden on somebody, like you need to deal with this on your own, to isolate us because God's built us for community. And so that's why people, don't want to tell because they get wrapped up in those lies.
That if I tell this, it's going to separate me even more.
Yeah.
And so they can't know this about me because if I do tell them, it's going to cause a further separation. So I'll just let them think what they want. But then it's always worse, right? Because then, then you keep it.
There are a lot of consequences for not telling.
Oh man, and this goes back to a great show, The Rehearsal. Because the first episode of that is about this guy that, like, his secret, and it was a secret, was that, like, his trivia group thought that he had a master's degree and he didn't.
Yeah.
And it sounds so silly, but he's like, I've kind of let them believe this for years, and he's like, I'm afraid if I tell them, they'll be like, why did you lie to us for this long? And then he was going to be kicked out of the trivia group, which was his community. And so it's this thought that, like, okay, I should have told him a long time ago, but now I'm stuck because I haven't told him. And now it's this bigger deal that, like, if I do tell him now, they're going to, like, freak out on me and stuff. And so, I mean, I thought she probably thought, oh, everything's fine. Nobody's going to find out about the quantum verse. And
so they
did. And then it was worse because she hadn't told him. So hey, tell people your secrets.
Tell people your secrets.
So
that's the takeaway.
Well, hey, it's time for Florida Fables. Okay, so this one, similar. Do you remember when McDonald's got sued for having too hot of coffee?
Yes.
Yes. So it's happening again. It's re-happening. So this girl, 4-year-old girl, it's back in 2019. Her mom ordered her Happy Meal, as one does, and turned out not so happy.
An unhappy meal, if you will.
Yeah, and she got so she hands her daughter the Happy Meal. The daughter takes out a chicken nugget, drops it, and it gets stuck in between the car seat and her leg, and then burns her.
Oh gosh!
Because it was so hot, and they filed a lawsuit and won $800,000
It's an expensive chicken nugget.
Whoa.
It's a little bit down from the 15 million they were asking for.
They asked for 15 million.
15 million to cover the burns or whatever. But like, I mean, you got.
I think for 15 million, you could buy a whole pair of new legs.
I got new legs.
I thought you were going to say you could buy like the McDonald's franchise.
No, you could buy new legs.
So if you were to get a McNugget brand in your leg, what shape would you want? Because all the McNuggets.
Oh, there's like four shapes. Yeah,
there's
Like
I would
a
get the one
Stegosaurus.
like Louisiana
and they're like one that's like Indiana.
or Indiana.
Then there's a round one. I'd probably just go with the round one. The round McNugget. You know, they're all like different shapes.
Do we all?
There's like 4 shapes of McNuggets.
Do you
I
also get
didn't know this.
$800,000?
Yeah, $800,000 and skin graft.
So now do all of the boxes, because like when the lawsuit for the
coffee,
then every single coffee cup has to have caution, contents may be hot. And now is every box of fast food going to have that?
I don't know, because it says the chicken.
That's like I would neglectful parent because
Oh, that was one of the comments.
okay,
That's right.
because I mean without fail blast the air conditioning and stick those chicken nuggets in front of it
You
until
do
they're
that?
cool. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, because
I mean, we do not eat McDonald's chicken nuggets. I'll just say, Chick-fil-A though.
Chick-fil-A. Oh yeah, but yeah. So the lawsuit said the chicken McNuggets inside of the Happy Meal were unreasonably and dangerously hot and caused the victim's skin and flesh around her thigh to burn. But then the people were like, they came back and they're like, look. McDonald's and their franchisee, so they're like also suing like the parent company that makes the McNuggets or whatever. But it says they argued food safety requires McNuggets to be hot enough, otherwise they're unsafe to eat.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. You
Yeah,
don't
they
want
have to
them
be hot.
And then listen to this: the defense also argued that what happens to a McNugget once it leaves the drive-through window is beyond their control.
Yeah, so how'd she win?
They only got 800,000.
Only. That's the lesson. Ask for more.
Because I read up on the lawsuit with the coffee.
Yeah.
And it was something about like it wasn't just that like, oh, the coffee was too hot. I mean, it was like overly hot. Like it wasn't just that it was like, oh, we made it hot because it's coffee. It's like, no, we did this to a temperature that was unsafe. Like it was
like coffee is a little bit more understandable because it's not gonna like give you salmonella or food poisoning if it's too lukewarm. But chicken, though, I would be like, the hotter the better.
Some of the comments, somebody was like, how are we not talking about that the food was actually hot at McDonald's?
I know.
That's the real miracle
It's
here.
like, that's, yeah.
Yeah, and then somebody said, why not publish a picture of the disfiguring burn so we can see if it was $800,000 or a $15 million injury?
True.
And so, but the neglectful parenting, because that's like some people made that comment of like that kid could choke. They're 4.
4-year-olds
and
can't
you're
be
just,
trusted.
like, handing them food, and you like haven't checked it. Like, I don't know. And so is it the person's fault, or should McDonald's have not made their nuggets so hot?
I think it's the person's fault.
So is this entitlement mentality of like, oh,
especially if your kid gets burned and you're like, I'm gonna sue for
$15 million.
well, I'm sure
I've
they went
had
to
worse burns than that, and I can tell you my doctor bill was like $40. Like,
but this is what happens though, because lawyers like they want they want lawsuits like this, and so
because they get lots of money too.
Oh yeah, they get like 40%, or they get something crazy. So I mean,
He said, I think you should ask for $15 million.
15 million. Yeah, it's like it's so. I mean, it's all greed and all like I'm owed this or like oh my.
It's not really about the nugget. And the temperature.
But if the kid was like, now if it was on her face, she was like
disfigured.
Yeah, I mean, if you got a chicken McNugget scar on your face, that like every time somebody's like, "What happened to your face?" Like chicken McNugget accident. Like
but she's not gonna be like, the Home Alone.
Maybe she fell. She's choking on one nugget and fell on the other one.
Oh my goodness!
Got a brand,
goodness.
but it snapped her back in, saved her life. But I mean, okay, we've complained about fast food places on here before. Like my sauce ordeal. Awesome. I have 2 new ones now. So I take one of my daughters every other week to Like we rotate weeks, and we go to fast food restaurants on Thursdays and eat breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to Taco Bell breakfast, which is pretty good, by the way. But they have a breakfast salsa. And so I said, "Oh, what's breakfast salsa?" And the guy goes, "Breakfast salsa." I said, "Yeah, but what is it?" He goes, "Breakfast sauce." And he said it like 4 or 5 times. Was getting increasingly angrier. I was like, "But what's different that makes it breakfast salsa?" And he's like, "Breakfast salsa." And I was like, "I'm gonna break your face over the salsa." And so that was an angry thing. And then another incident with salsa at McDonald's. So I was
It's the salsa. That's what most would get me for saying corn salsa wrong. People are mad about their salsa.
Yeah, so I ordered a breakfast burrito at McDonald's, and like we did on a little kiosk because I don't want to talk to people, and then I want AI to run the world, and so I didn't get my salsa for my burrito. So then I go up to the counter and I was like, "Hey, I didn't get my salsa," and she goes, "Sauce?" I said, "No, salsa." Like for my breakfast burrito. She goes, "Sauce." I was like, "What?"
Whatever comes with a breakfast burrito,
Yeah,
I
for the
want
breakfast
it.
burrito. And she's like, "Yeah, it's sauce." I was like, "Okay, well, what?" And she's like, "Do you want hot, medium, or mild?" I was like, "Hot salsa." It's like,
Sauce.
It's like, I'm like, "Come on!"
He's like, "I'm not gonna give it to you unless you say it."
Because sauce, they have all the sauces there. I was like, "I don't want honey mustard or whatever," but I'm like, "Come on, people." So I sued them for $15 million.
But you only got 800,000, which is a travesty.
By the time I got back there, my burrito wasn't hot. I was like, "I don't want cold food."
You couldn't even burn yourself with it.
So I don't know, but yeah. All right, are we wrapping up, or did you had a book or something? Or you want to save
Next
that for
time.
next time. Okay.
Next time.
Stay
'cause
tuned.
It's been a half hour.
Next week on WorldView Finder, we're talking about some other stuff. So hey, thanks for joining us, Jimmy, Adrian. It's been good. It's been fun. So everybody,
Tell your secrets.
Tell everybody your secrets.
Leave them in the comments.
I know. Find that group of people
Yeah,
that you
find
can
community.
like have real life with, that you can share those things with. And so, yeah, you're weird just like everybody else. I'm Chris.
I'm Adrian.
And I'm Jimmy.
We'll see you next time.